great to be back for season 2. We'll be bringing you a whole bunch of really interesting guests in the coming months, once a month going forward. And this month's episode, our guest is Andrew Klein. Now, before we meet Andrew, let's go back to the year 1986 when he turned 21, and what a year it was. The United Kingdom and France announced plans to construct the Channel Tunnel. The Channel. Also in the UK this year, Prince Andrew marries Sarah Ferguson at Westminster Abbey. And still overseas, the Space Shuttle Challenger disintegrates 73 seconds after launch, killing the crew of 7 astronauts, including schoolteacher Christo McAuliffe. Closer to home here in Melbourne, a car bomb explodes at the then Russell Street Police Station in the CBD, killing Constable Angela Taylor. She's the first Australian policewoman to be killed in the line of duty. On TV, Neighbours makes its debut on Channel 10, moving from Network 7, and comes to dominate the 7 p.m. weeknight time slot. The movie show with David and Margaret begins on SBS, and it's a big year of Australian TV debuts. With the 7:30 report, The Flying Doctors, I went to Minyip. It was great, loved it. So sure Gus enjoyed the 20 minutes we were there the other week. And the DGen, what a great group they are. They've done some amazing work over the years. The DGen commenced this year in 1986, as do Imports the Bill. Used to watch that on the ABC. Growing Pains, Who's the Boss? Airwolf with a Helicopter, and Moonlighting with Sybil Shepherd and Bruce Willis. Now, John Farnham's You're the Voice. The single is released in 1986. It's on the album Whispering Jack, which goes on to become the highest-selling album in Australia by an Australian artist. And I'm fanboying Farnham here because I love mid-80s Farnham. It's classic Farnham with over 1.6 million copies sold. That was Whispering Jack. Remains the third best-selling album of all time in Australia. It was the first Australian-made album to be released on compact disc within Australia, and I recall the moment I got that record on cassette, no less, from what was in Brash's at Chenside Park Shopping Centre in the outer east of Melbourne. In 2018, as part of Triple M's Ozist 100, I love it, the Ozist 100, of the most Australian songs of all time, You're the Voice was ranked number 6 behind these classics, Kaysan, Working Class Man, Great Southern Land, and It's a Long Way to the Top if you want to rock and roll. It's the year 1986 when our guest, Andrew Klein, turned 21. Andrew, welcome. What a year. What do you remember about 1986? What were you doing? What was your 21st like?
So I remember a lot and not a lot, as in, I'll tell you what I do remember. You say You're the Voice. I remember the music of the time, and there's a reason for that. The job that I had, I was studying, but I was also, while I was at uni, I had what I still to this day reckon was the dream job for someone who loves music.
Mm-hmm.
I worked at the Sydney Entertainment Centre almost every night selling merch, selling programs and merchandise and concerts. And this was pretty much throughout the 1980s. This was during an era of music that I always maintain, whatever music you were listening to when you were sort of, in your late teens, early 20s, that becomes your music forever.
It does.
And I heard in that time, I reckon 8 years I was working there, probably almost every single band that toured Australia in the 1980s, I worked at and heard. So when you talk about what do I remember from 86, I remember a lot of the music. I remember a lot of the concerts, and some of it was that atrocious 1980 sort of Tears for Fears, Culture Club, Flock of Seagulls, all of that. Wham! I saw all of those bands live, but some of it was like I saw Bruce Springsteen 6 times in a row, Dire Straits 10 times in a row, Billy Joel, Elton John, Deep Purple, all the heavy metal bands. All the Aussie bands at the time, the Chisels and Midnight Oil and Split Ends. And so when I think of that era, I very much think of that time of my life working there.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to my 21st, I had I wouldn't say that it was an out of control party at all.
Here we go.
No, I really would. I was quite conservative is the wrong word. I was pretty straight, right? I was pretty straight. My nickname was Richie Cunningham. I had a lot of red hair, which is hard to imagine now. Before I had red hair. I played basketball, and I came from sort of wholesome middle class family. So My 21st was great. It was
Yeah.
held on the top floor of the local council chambers because
Yeah.
my dad was an architect and had just built the Waverley council chambers. And so we got access to the roof. So it was the roof of the Waverley council chambers. The theme was but my name is Andrew. I couldn't think of a theme. I went with A. It was an A party.
Oh, well, that's a good alliteration.
With A. And the cringy thing
Right.
was I went as an ant, right, with little antlers and things, and just I don't know. I can't even remember what I was wearing, black clothes and ant. But a shitload of my friends went as Andrew, and unbeknownst to me, they
Oh,
went
no.
and raided my wardrobe and just wore all of my stuff. And I had a fairly 1980s sort of fairly daggy way of dressing, and they just dressed as me. They spray painted their hair red because I had red hair, and they wore my clothes. So, like, three-quarters of the room was me. It was not a good.
I love it. Did they get any of your merchandise that you had collected surreptitiously?
They probably were wearing, like, the Elton John, Too Low for Zero tour shirt and all that sort of stuff. There was a lot of sort of Western shirts which were popular at the time. There were a
Right.
lot of those sort of tie-dyed T-shirts from
Fair.
markets and big colourful boardies and bowling shoes, which sort of, I think my daughter tells me are back in fashion.
Have they ever gone out of fashion? That's very true.
These bowling shoes. And that was my 21st. Oh, and the other thing, Jeremy,
Yes.
that my parents had said to me, "What do you want to eat at your 21st? Like, you can have
Right.
anything you like."
Good.
And I love KFC, and so we just
Oh, you are my spirit animal, brother. Keep going.
no, that's what it was. It was KFC from Bondi Beach, and me.
Oh, when I asked you onto the show, I thought, "Oh, this guy will be good to have a chat with, having met you a few times." But I think you just kind of blown my very high expectations out of the water. I love it. So you're a wingman, or you're getting stuck into like the Chewies and the KFC, was it?
I don't remember the alcohol because, as I said, I was fairly straight. I
You're a
imagine
good
it was
man.
beer and probably cheap cask wine. I suspect
Oh dear, Andrew.
Boulevard. I think that was the thing in
Mm,
1986.
probably.
And I do remember one thing I remember was the one particular song that I loved at that
Yep.
time was "Don't Leave Me This Way" by the Communards. It was a cover of a sort of 1970s song. And Communards were these two really sort of cool and daggy at the same time gay guys with the 1980s hairstyle, and they were
Right.
really good. They were a really good band. They were sort of like an offshoot of Bronski Beat. Do you remember them?
I'm a little bit younger than you, not much younger, but, like and my musical taste kind of ended with Crowded House and, Farnham, so you're probably a little bit more refined and worldly than I am in my, you know
Big Crowded House fan, big Split Enz fan, big Crowded House fan. Still
very
still to
cool.
this day.
Yeah, tell me about the speeches. Dad's an architect, was an architect. Did they get up and mum and dad have a bit of a natter about our boy Richie Cunningham?
I think so. My late father was not a public speaker. My mother
Right,
was a school teacher,
right.
was not much of a public speaker. I had three of my mates from school. They probably told stories that were not particularly controversial because, as I said, you would have had to dig fairly deep to find overly controversial stories about me.
Right.
I was a basketballer. I was a music lover,
Yep,
and I was studying law. So they probably incorporated that. I don't remember being particularly embarrassed by anything that they said.
yep.
I probably was a difficult target for a 21st when you're sort of meant to talk about the time that they spewed up out of the car window. And there's probably wasn't that many stories about me at that time.
When you were the designated driver being the good one actually helping you. It's probably a pinch.
I would have been their designated driver.
That's right. Helping them when they were spewing up outside.
Yes. And because I was already into public speaking then, I was always the guy who did the speeches at 21st. So I had done a lot of speeches and continued to do a lot of 21st speeches. I reckon I was doing one a fortnight for about 2 years.
Wow.
Because people go, well, Kleiny likes to speak and he's can tell a joke. So I did.
He was sober at that party, so he remembers actually what happened.
Yes, I think I don't know what all the other people who interviewed have said about their 21st, but I'm going to say I'm an outlier. I was probably fairly sober at the end of my 21st.
Well,
I can't remember much of it, but it wasn't for the. It probably wasn't for being under the table.
Very, very cool. So the public speaking thing's been a huge part. I mean, obviously, we're talking to you in your career these days as a professional MC, and we'll come to that. Where did the idea to go into law, as we segue into a bit of, you're at high school, did law, so, mum and dad both professionals. Was it I want to be a lawyer, or was law like a Vizard type thing about, the degen folk, go to law school and then see what happens? Or tell me about that.
I actually wanted to be a lawyer and wanted to practice law.
Yep.
Not for any familial, there was no lawyers in my family. I didn't even really know that many lawyers.
Right.
I went to a public boys' school, that its careers guidance was pretty limited, and it would sort of really, people became tradies and then they left in year 10.
Yeah.
If you went on to year 12, the IT industry was very much at an infancy. It wasn't really a big thing in 1983 when I left school.
Yeah.
So this is 86 is 3 years later.
Yeah.
So it was sort of doctor, lawyer, accountant, engineer, advertising. It was sort of pretty limited.
Yeah.
And because at school I did debating and I was pretty good at debating and I liked performing, I was sort of in some of the school musicals and stuff. It seemed, and I was good at English. It seemed like a logical thing to study law. And in my head, I'd already sort of decided I'm going to study really hard. I didn't just sort of end up getting into law. I didn't just fall into it. I worked really hard in year 11 and year 12 to get the marks. It was damn hard to get into. And I was a good student, but not a great student. I was good enough, worked hard, wanted to be a lawyer. I thought I would go and work in a law firm for 5 years, 8 years, and then go to the bar, become a barrister, which sort of seemed quite logical, given that I'm a public speaker. And ironically, my 21st was the time that I had done 3 years of uni. So some of that was law, but most of that was arts. I did arts law. I majored in theatre studies.
Ah, right. Here we go.
I didn't want to be an actor, but I did enjoy theatre. And I thought the learning about theatre and improv, there was a lot of improv and being involved in a lot of theatrical productions would just be good as far as speaking and confidence and, plugging roles and things. Ironically, by the time I got to my 21st, I was, and now I'm actually not joking, I was very, very disillusioned about law. I was really finding it very boring. Those first 3 years, the arts, the theatre stuff, that was great. That was fun. The law was boring. It was dry. I found it very not creative. I was already beginning to think, by the time my 21st came around, I was thinking, shit, maybe I have made a mistake, because a lot of the students that I was studying with, they were really into it. They loved it. They loved the discipline of law. In our classes, they were pretty small sort of tutorial classes. They loved arguing about the law. I loved arguing. I just didn't love the subject of the law. So I found it all pretty dull. And I was a bit of a disillusioned law student by the time my 21st came around. So much so, Jeremy, that my birthday's in November, so my 21st was December. So my third year of uni was over and I deferred. And I was aware of that by that stage. I finished got the art degree, had 2 more years of law. I thought, no, I need a year off. And I was 21 and I was sort of ready to travel, and I'd been working really hard, as I mentioned to you. I'd always been working.
Yeah.
I took that year, that the year that I was 21, I was not actually at uni. I finished the arts part, deferred for a year, worked for about 5 more months, and then
Cool.
headed off overseas thinking naively that I'll come back and then I'll know what I want to do for the rest
Right.
of
You'll
my
have an epiphany when you're in Europe backpacking with all the other hundreds of thousands of people looking for an epiphany. And what
life.
happened?
No epiphany.
Not many beers, but no epiphany.
No epiphanies. Had a awesome, like an amazing time, and came back. Honestly, really enjoyed it, but none the wiser. And so then it was, look, there's only 2 more years to go. It's not that hard. Like it
Yeah.
really wasn't hard to pass. You only need a pass
Right.
to
Yeah.
get
No
your
one
degree.
cares once you get your piece of paper.
Yeah. So it was very much a look, I'll just keep going for 2 more years.
Yeah.
Maybe the next 2 years when you're only doing law, the arts was done.
Yeah.
Maybe then I'll get into it. Now you can select your own subjects,
Yep.
do the compulsories. Maybe I'll then get into it. And those 2 years didn't change my mind um, at
There
all.
was no gradual epiphany. There was just no epiphany at all.
The only epiphany was what I thought I what I thought about the study of law when I was in first year law was
Yeah.
correct. It
Right.
wasn't it wasn't what I should do. But it gives you a bit of an insight into my idealistic personality. I still thought maybe it'll be better in practice. Maybe it's just the second
Ah.
year of law.
Yeah.
4th year, the year I came back, I got a summer clerkship in a big law firm,
Yep.
which I also hated and also found dull and boring and didn't particularly like the people, didn't like the culture. But I still idealistically thought, okay, it's just a clerkship. I'm not actually a lawyer.
Yeah.
Maybe when I'm actually practicing as a lawyer, maybe then I'll find something. And that just never happened. Never happened. And I did get a job as a lawyer with that law firm, and I did work as a lawyer, fully qualified lawyer for in that law firm for 2 years, and then in the
Yeah.
public sector for 18 months, continually hoping that that epiphany of what can I do with my life, and maybe it's gonna get better, and maybe it's just that, first year when you're a junior shit kicker, maybe
Yeah.
it'll get better in second year,
Yep.
and it never
It
bothered.
never did it. It never floated your boat. So you left the law in the mid-90s. Was there a I don't even know the word, epiphanic? Anyway, if it's not a word, I've made it up and my wife will tell me I shouldn't have. But
Was
um,
epiphanic experience.
epiphanic experience. If it's not a word, we'll make it up, Andrew. It goes into the Oxford Australian Dictionary next week.
I'm gonna say probably, looking back, I'm gonna say yes to that question. I'll tell you why.
Right. Okay, good.
Left I left the law on a Friday. I had no idea what I was gonna do. I was
Oh,
married. I
yeah.
was married. My wife was very, very supportive of me leaving because I'd become quite depressed and miserable, and she went, "You'll find something. Leave. Like, leave. You won't
Wow.
while you're still there because you work long hours and you won't have the time to explore. You
No.
need to leave." And so with her support, I resigned on a Friday. I left, about a week later, and a week after that,
Yeah.
a friend of mine approached me. I needed money, right? We had a mortgage by that stage,
Uh,
small, but it seemed big at the time. A friend of mine was starting up a business delivering birthday cakes, a cake delivery business in the city in Sydney, because every big
yeah.
organisation has a lot of people with birthdays every week
Yeah.
and retirements and, various
Yeah.
things. So she came up with this cool idea, birthday cake delivery company, needed somebody who was willing to dress up as the Swedish chef from the Muppet Show to stand at Martin Place Station and Town Hall Station and leaflet. And I went, "Yep, that is me. I will do that for like $6 an hour or whatever, whatever it was, after a pretty good income at a big law
I was
firm."
going to say you've gone from one end of the spectrum to the other, so to speak.
The epiphany
Yeah.
was not that I enjoyed that job, and not that for 1 second did I think that that was gonna be a career,
No.
but the epiphany was around happiness. I was so miserable at the law firm because, like, looking back on it now, it didn't fit me. Didn't fit my
Yep.
personality. Culturally, it was the wrong fit. I had clearly made a mistake for me. And then even doing something as mundane as handing out leaflets, I felt this weight off my shoulder
Yep.
that I don't have to be a lawyer. I'm not gonna be a lawyer. I know that I'm not gonna leaflet as a career. I will find a career. I had no idea what I was gonna do,
Yep.
but as I said, I was optimistic and I'm pretty confident. I hope I don't come across to people as arrogant, but I'm privately arrogant in myself, as in I'm very confident that I can do something. I was very confident that I would find something. I didn't quite know what my quote unquote talents were.
Yep.
I do now, but I didn't then. I knew I liked acting, but I wasn't going to be an actor. I knew I was good at speaking, didn't quite know how speaking and debating and impro, which I was
Mhm.
very into. I didn't know how, if you didn't want to be an actor, how that could be utilized career-wise, but I just felt I'll work it out. And so the epiphany was handing out leaflets, being really quite happy, knowing that I wasn't going to be doing that forever, but knowing that I had basically closed a chapter, even though
Yeah.
my European parents, who were so delighted to have a son who was
My
a lawyer,
boy's a lawyer.
you can always fall back on it. Like, you
Yeah.
can always fall back. I knew I wasn't going to. I just think intrinsically I knew it was wrong. I'm gonna find something. I'll be a success in something somehow. I wasn't in a hurry. And the epiphany was handing out leaflets, including, by the way, I still remember I handed out a leaflet to a guy who was working at the same big law firm as me. He was part of my intake.
Ah.
So he was a sort of third-year lawyer by that stage.
Yeah.
I had left 2 weeks before. We were sort of mates. He was a great guy, and he sort of said this jokingly. He took the leaflet, he looked at the leaflet, he looked at me, and he went, "Good career move, Kleiny." Well, it's sort of a gentle, I love
Yeah.
gently taking the piss. It was just this great
Yeah.
Aussie thing of, he was sort of saying, "What the hell are you doing?" But he knew me, and he was sort of saying, "You'll be alright.
I get it.
You'll
I
be
get
alright."
it. Do you remember getting in the lift for the last time at that firm?
So
Do you get? I'm almost picturing a bit of Suits here in terms of that TV show. Getting in the lift the last time with your suit on and it closing, and was there almost like a weight coming off your shoulders as you went down the lift and walked out for the last time?
yeah, like, very, very much so. Like, I can remember that feeling, and
Yep.
I remember the feeling of I was such a wrong cultural fit. Think of all of the stereotypes of a 1990s big law firm, okay? So
Yep.
that includes some pretty horrible things like, subtle racism and subtle
Yeah.
misogyny and subtle, all those sort of horrible,
Mm.
shitty things that you hear about, and this law firm was just one of many.
Yep.
And there are some people who were very much able, and I sort of wished that I could. They were able to sideline all that and go, look, this is a means to an end. I'll just put my head down for a couple of years and I'll
Yep.
get through it. And then and I just couldn't bear that. I couldn't do it. And the thing that I hated was that which was no one's fault, was that there was no real room for creativity. And I don't think I realized how important it
Uh-huh.
is. And this
Yeah.
is a cliche. If you're a creative person, you can't really stamp it down. Like,
No.
either you do a job that's not creative and then you join a band or you join the local theatre group or you do some painting or whatever, or you go, no, I have to scratch that itch. I have to do
Yeah.
something. And for me, luckily, and we'll get to it, I found that creative opportunity in the corporate world. But
Yep.
the corporate world that I was working in, selling at a big law firm, definitely didn't have that creative opportunity. So, yes, I do remember. I remember leaving. I remember my exit interview. I remember the HR person, who was a delightful woman, saying, just out of interest, if they offered to pay you more, would you stay? And I remember I said to her, and I meant it, you could pay me 10 times my salary. I'm never working here. You could pay me $1,000,000. And I really meant it. I'm
Yeah,
not
good on you.
I'm not working here. I cannot do it. And she said to me, and she was right. She said, "You need to leave." Like,
Yeah.
yeah, as in she was being compassionate. It
Yep.
clearly is the wrong fit. This is not the right thing. Maybe you'll find a career elsewhere in the law, or maybe you'll find a different career altogether. So yeah, I literally left it behind. And I think at the back of my mind, I always knew I could go back, but I'm not going back. I'm going to find something, and it might take me a while, but I'll be okay. And it took a while. I can tell you that journey, but it
Yeah, yeah.
took a
Well,
while.
one of the things I learned about you when I was doing some research was that one of your first MC roles was at the Sydney Olympics. So that's 2000, entertaining crowds at Homebush. So how did that come about? And
So,
what was it like being at the Olympics? That would have been
so
wonderful.
it was an incredible, incredible, incredible experience. The way it came about was this: when I left the law, I did a whole lot of other jobs that had nothing to do with the law. I sold shower screens and wardrobes and did back office for a friend or an associate of mine who had started up a business, needed some admin. I did various bits and pieces. I wrote music reviews. I told you I was into music.
Yeah.
Write music reviews for a number of different music magazines, sort of Rolling Stone style magazines, street magazines.
Mhm.
So, earned a little bit of money. And then a friend of mine who was a year above me at school, who was also quite theatrical, had been a school teacher, left teaching at the same time as I left the law. And we started up a business doing study skills seminars for year 11 and year 12 students in high schools,
Ah,
teaching them in a fun, interactive way how to write notes more effectively, write essays more effectively, manage your time, how to
yep,
learn lots of information. We sort of, used our various skills and stood up in front of large groups of year 11 and year 12 students and ran these seminars, which was sort of our first, for me, that was my first legitimate business away from the law, which
right.
while we were doing that business and growing that, we were also running some pub trivia quizzes
Cool.
in a fun way, in an interactive way. We were sort of, entertaining the crowds and running trivia quizzes. The standard trivia nights like pubs still do,
Yep.
but there were a group of accountants from PricewaterhouseCoopers who would come to one of our quizzes every week. One of those guys said to us after one of our quizzes, he said, I really like the energy and the humor and the interaction that you bring. Could you run a trivia quiz at our conference, an accountants conference? And we went, sure. And we did it and it
Yep.
worked and we got paid like good money. We were still doing our study skills business, started to run trivia nights at conferences. So corporate team building.
Ah,
This
right.
this year. So that corporate team building then led to us being at conferences and started to uh, run trivia nights and sort of, like amazing race scavenger hunt sort of things.
Cool.
And
Right.
then this was in the lead up to the Olympics when the conference industry, luckily for us, was growing in
Yeah.
Sydney and Australia. And a friend of mine was working for the Sydney Organising Committee for the Olympic Games.
So cock. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she knew that Darren, my then business partner, and she knew that we were good on our feet. And she'd seen us speak and she'd seen us at our trivia nights. And she said, I think there's some opportunities for people to entertain crowds of people who are waiting in line to buy. I don't know if you remember this. There was this whole subculture before the Sydney Olympics
Yeah. Of
of
the pins. Yes. Yes. It was
entertain
a
the
thing, wasn't
people.
it? It was a big thing. And
Huge. It was this subculture. They were called pinheads. And the
ah,
pinheads would line up in Pitt Street Mall, I kid you not, for hours
right.
before the release of a special commemorative, 500 days to go pin or 100 days to go pin or 50
Yeah.
days.
Yeah.
And they would line up for hours, like from 5 o'clock in the morning, and the shop didn't open until 10. And the so-called people went, we've got to, like, it's awesome that these people are doing this. Let's get a little bit of hype. Let's build a bit of hype.
Yep.
We became the hype people in the lead up to the Olympics on Pitt Street Mall, singing songs, getting them to sing songs, running activities, getting them standing up, doing different dances, doing
Good
various
on you.
activities and building hype and getting, people who are passers-by to go into the Olympic store to buy merch. And because we did a good job, we actually interacted with a lot of they had Olympians and we had to interview the Olympians, all gathering school
Cool.
leaders to this day. So when the Olympics actually happened, and we weren't the only ones, were crowd entertainers who would entertain the enormous lines of people
Mm,
queuing up to go into the Olympics, into events, into the merch stores. And we had a license, do whatever you like, to
great.
keep people happy and smiling, like Sydney siders and all of the tourists
Yeah,
were in such a great frame of mind. Everybody was friends and laughing and
yeah.
singing and dancing and, Mexican waves and
Was
Sydney
it
oil
great? Yeah.
waves. And so that was that gig. And we did that throughout the Olympics in the Homebush precinct. Thinking
And
on how
25 years later, you obviously recall that with great glee, and rightly so, because it was such an important time. And for those people that jungle at us, I mean, it was a big deal, the Sydney Olympics. I remember I was a staffer in Canberra and we went up for the Special Olympics after, and it was just amazing. I'm like, wow,
I
like
work,
it,
my business partner and I to this day say that we worked as MCs essentially
yeah,
on the biggest event in the history of this country.
yep,
Done. I
yeah,
think. I don't think there's
wow,
been a bigger event in
no,
Australia
no,
than the Sydney Olympics, and we were blessed and paid for. Honestly, if I had known how much the skills that it would give us, the crowd control,
yeah,
reading an audience, the keeping the energy up,
yeah.
um, we were pretty tired at the end of the day, but so energized. Like I'm thinking about it now. It was just
Yeah. Yeah, you've lit up talking about it. So how did you go from the Sydney Olympics? Let's fast forward. I mean, you've been doing emceeing. You're a professional MC. You do the a whole bunch of other stuff, and I'll share your website in the show notes. How does one become a you know on the passport lawyer to what do you put now? MC.
I basically say when people ask, I say I work in the conference industry
Yep.
as a professional MC, facilitator, moderator.
Great.
The way I explain it to people who go to conferences but haven't necessarily seen someone like me or seen a professional MC is that the conference organizer, the event organizers who are
Mm,
my clients,
yeah.
they organize the whole thing. What they don't do is run what goes on stage. Once the
Yeah.
conference starts,
Yeah.
I run the stage, I introduce the speakers, I run the panel discussions, I moderate the Q&A. I sometimes will moderate Q&A with a speaker, sitting down at chair on the table. I do the housekeeping, I keep things to time, and
Yep.
my clients, who I think have an unbelievably difficult job, they do everything else, and the everything
Yeah.
else big
Yeah.
job,
Yeah.
and ours is the glamorous job. How did that happen?
Yeah.
Slowly.
Right.
I'm not. This is again. It's not false modesty.
No. No.
It was if I said I'm a professional MC, and then I became one. It was a slow, like a lot of businesses,
Yeah.
but unlike the way a lot of people advertise the way business works, it was a gradual, slow grind of putting my hand up for every single opportunity, paid, unpaid,
Mhm.
charity, community, local community, corporate,
Yeah.
government, brand, everything. And then bit by bit by bit by bit, building that to the point where I've been doing it now for 30 years. And there's not a lot of us, as in there
No.
are many people who MC conferences. Some of them are comedians, some of them are great MCs, but they're actually comedians or they're journos or they're
Mhm.
TV personalities or they're the people that you see on the panel sort of style TV shows,
Yep.
or they're what I am, and again, I mean this, they are
Mhm.
no name, not celebrity, but professional corporate conference MCs who have been doing it a long time and understand the entertainment interactive part, but they also understand the corporate part. And
Yep.
that is where I have to, hand on heart, say, being a lawyer for a few years didn't
Yeah.
hurt.
No.
It gave me credit at the beginning. You don't need to be a lawyer to do what I do. Like,
No, no, no. But it
but
wouldn't have hurt either to go, "Oh, I've got a law degree and an
yeah,
arts degree in drama."
not passionate, to be honest, anymore,
Right.
unless I think it'll make a difference. I'm sure it's on my website.
Yep.
If it gives me cred, great, but my clients don't use me because of that. They use me because of the experience that I have running the show in the
Mm.
but the corporate nous or the corporate understanding, the corporate subtleties of
Yep.
knowing what's appropriate, not appropriate, how do big companies work, how do CFOs and CEOs and CIOs and, second rung leadership levels and the sales manager and the staff and the head office and the franchisees and, all of the corporate nonsense that goes on. Know it, and I'll play it because I understand the
And
subtleties
you've
of
lived
or that everyone does get that.
you have lived it more to
Yeah.
the point, haven't you, which is really important. Uh, One of the things you're known for is your I'll get it right, your improvisational skills. I need a cup of tea. Have you ever had a moment when things have gone completely off script, and how do you recover? I mean, it's and I've met you through Aussie, which is fantastic, but and I assume we're a pretty decent, you've been doing Aussie conferences for I think 10 years. You said before, which is don't get invited back to those things unless you do a good job. I would have thought, but uh, has there been a bit of a hell moment when you've been on stage and something's gone wrong, or like the speaker hasn't turned up and you've got I could almost see you on stage having to go, I've got 15 minutes. How the heck do I fill that in? Or
Yeah.
yeah,
So it is a good question. My answer is probably a surprise to a lot of people in that things go wrong at every conference. It's not uncommon for something to go wrong. In fact, I'd say probably at every conference that every person who is listening to this has been to,
right,
something's gone wrong.
right,
Sometimes pretty big things. And we will often shield the audience from that, but not
yep,
always. I'll give you
yep,
some examples.
great,
There was a conference that I did, I'm going to say 10, 15 years ago at Hamilton Island.
okay,
And the power went out, by which I mean the island's power went out.
wow,
A lot of people, I'm gonna say 400 people or something in the giant conference, facility out the back of Hamilton Island. So there was no lights, there was certainly no PowerPoint, there was no microphone, there was no power.
wow,
And to the event organizer, that was a, "Oh my god, what the hell has gone on here?" moment. I I'm not patting myself on the back, but I
no.
I was not stressed by that. I love it when shit like that happens. Where the goal that is where the goal happens.
Tony from Aussie, if you're listening, that's your challenge next year. You and John Winter, Tony. I'm winding Tony up from Aussie,
I reckon
but
people that you mentioned have had those sort of things go on. Anyone who ran in fact, everyone did. Everyone who ran an event during COVID, they had
yes,
this
yes,
this happen.
and the listeners can't see me putting my hand up. Yes, true.
Let's put COVID aside because that was a little bit different because you didn't have people in the room,
No,
which means that if you lose power, you lose contact with people. But if
yeah,
everyone's in the room, which most conferences nowadays are, certainly the
yeah,
ones that I do,
yeah.
you simply say to the audience, you name the elephant in the room. It's pretty clear to people that the power's gone out.
Power's gone off.
And the audience don't care when something like that happens. Why? Because during a speech, during a presentation, what the audience really want to do is reach for their phone.
Yeah,
They don't mind a break. They don't
no,
mind the opportunity to talk to the people next to them
no,
because that's why they came to the conference, to be
yeah,
honest, not
yeah.
to hear the speaker.
And the
So
network.
I will now very, very comfortably, when things like that happen, microphone breaks down or PowerPoint isn't working, I won't try and fill things. I won't get up like a comedian, as in, if I were a comedian, I might do this differently, but I'm not going to get up there and fill and pretend. I
No,
will get up as I did at Hamilton Island, and I said in a very, very loud voice, because I've got a very loud voice, "Hey, it's pretty clear what's gone on. Just have a chat with the person next to you, and we'll be back shortly." And
yeah,
2 minutes later, the generator that Hamilton Island has, the generator started firing up and the sound and lights went back on, and people laughed about it and spoke about it for the rest of the conference. And, I've done conferences
it happens.
in tents, that were in a tent,
Oh, yeah.
and it started raining and the water started coming in. So people got up and they walked outside and they went undercover and it stopped raining and they came back out and we cut the presentation short by 10 minutes and we got on with it. I've done conferences. I remember one at the Canberra Convention Centre
Yep.
when there was a fire alarm and I don't think there was a fire, but the fire engines came and everybody had to get up in the middle of the presentation and walk to the emergency point, and they all laughed. Nobody panicked, and they chatted, and the presenter actually spoke, like kept on talking to the people while they were gathered outside for 10 minutes. And then we went back into, you're shrugging, I'm shrugging. Like, it just doesn't.
It happens, and it's easy. You're the professional. I've done, either all these over many years, and you just go, it's like shit happens. What can do? What can do? You can't.
Accepting as long as
as long as the food's good,
and as long as this doesn't go on for an hour. But if it goes on for half an hour, you bring lunch forward, or you bring afternoon tea forward, or you one day and you shuffle around, which you do anyway. You're constantly shuffling the agenda. And this speaker went for 20 minutes too long, and the politician didn't turn up, so you had to get the second speaker to talk before the politician. And I'm always sort of on my phone to the event organizer, discussing, what are we doing? It's gone over time, or the lunch isn't ready, and you just change, and you tell the audience that you're changing, and you name the elephants in the room. I don't panic about that, and you need not.
Do many audiences panic? I mean, I can't remember. I've been to a conference and something's gone wrong, and you go,
the event organizer,
go whatever.
The event organizer does.
Yeah. Okay.
But if it's not on them, like if they haven't made a mistake, which they probably haven't, it's probably just that AV, audio visual, even when you have real professionals, which, more often than not, I'm working with very professional audio visual, it's still an imperfect science. And they've usually got a backup laptop or a backup microphone. And so you swap the microphone. If a speaker doesn't turn up, you swap another speaker around, and no one cares. No one's following that closely, to be honest.
No.
Other than us behind the scenes.
Yeah. And like I said before, as long as the food is good, the feedback you get about food and all the conferences I've run and all the associations I've run over the years, it's always about the food. And you're like, okay, we're going to a different place next year anyway.
Things go wrong.
Yeah, it happens. Let's just dive into some of the other stuff you do, which is the the speaking skills. What makes a great introduction? How do you walk like that? You've talked about for yourself how you're walking that line between being informative and entertaining. And then the flip side to that is, what are some of the biggest mistakes that people make when they're pitching an idea? So I want to have a think about how you do things, how you keep it informational but also entertaining. But then things you've seen where you go, oh, I wish you hadn't done that, or, I mean, I occasionally watch a bad episode of Shark Tank, repeats from whenever, and the people that start coming in and strutting their stuff and thinking they're very cool are often the ones that walk out with absolutely 0 sense.
Yeah. Generally speaking, I don't sort of have an ethos or a mission or a philosophy, but if I had to sort of say what are the keys to a good pitch or the keys to a good presentation, it isn't necessarily what some presentation skills experts would say.
Right.
Because I don't believe that there is a formula other than authenticity. Like, I'm all about being yourself, and that means trying to be, as it sounds so obvious when I say it, but trying to be true to yourself, meaning talk to an audience or talk to the people that you're pitching to in the way that you would talk to a friend.
Yep.
If you were having a cup of coffee. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean, that you tell swear words or that you're, incredibly flippant. It doesn't mean, though, that you have to be, quote unquote, overly professional and overly corporate. Now, what I mean by that, I don't mean unprofessional. I mean some of the worst presenters that I see are following all the presentation skills rules.
Yeah.
They're very well dressed and they're very well spoken and their slides look beautiful.
Great.
They're not particularly real or authentic or natural.
Too polished?
Too polished. Too polished. I do think preparation is important. You need to be prepared.
Yeah.
I try and encourage people, don't be so over prepared that it sounds like you're reading from a script, or that you're in a theatre. I will have some presenters who have gone to presentation skills courses before who will give a presentation that is so perfect that it's not real. And so the audience don't really into it because they don't feel that you're speaking to them.
No.
They feel that you're reading a script and standing on stage at a Melbourne Theatre Company or Sydney Theatre Company.
Yeah. You've learned a piece.
You've learnt it. And so when I hear people reading a presentation, like literally reading it word for word, I sort of would suggest to them, look, you're the expert, right? You're not, no one's asking you to give a presentation on a topic that you're not an expert on.
Yep.
You are the expert. The audience don't know as much as you do. Don't be afraid to have notes. Don't be afraid to even look at your notes. Don't be afraid even if you have to read a sentence because that sentence is vital.
Yep.
Don't be afraid to do it. But other than that, talk in an imperfect style, as in the way that I'm talking to you. I'm sure I've said up a few times. You and I have talked over each other.
Yep.
I've come back to things that I've said before. I've clarified something that perhaps wasn't so clear. I've tried to re-explain something because maybe the first way I explained it wasn't the best way. But I'm talking to you honestly, Jeremy, the same way that I would be talking to 100 people.
Yep. And I have seen you do that many times. And it's just you. Yeah. Yeah, well, you've got the questions in advance. So doesn't mean we're going to use them all, but they're going to ask them the same way.
Presentation is staged,
Yeah.
but not overly staged. So I love when I see a presenter who isn't a great public speaker in terms of they're not perfect, but they're very passionate and they're very real and they might make a few mistakes. But if they're this sort of wild, larger than life person, I want to see that. If they're a quieter, more reserved person, perhaps with a black sense of humor, or they're a little bit, that's okay. Like, I like seeing those people. It's not about being an extrovert. It's about being whoever you are.
And owning that persona. Not persona, that's not the fair word. Owning who you are and acknowledging that. Is that a fair observation?
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good observation, provided that you've done the homework,
that
you are delivering the content that the audience wants to hear, provided that you sound like you care. Like, there are some people who are so relaxed that they don't really sound all that enthused. How is the audience going to be enthused about your message if you don't sound enthusiastic? I have people all the time who say to me off stage, I'm really, really passionate about this subject, or I'm really, really passionate about my job. And then I hear a present and I think, well, tell your face, tell your voice, because your face and your voice do not sound like you are interested or passionate in what you're talking about. And some of the best presenters that I've seen are talking about stuff, Jeremy, that I'm not even that interested in, but they're so interested in it that I can't help but buy into that enthusiasm, even if they're a little bit quieter or shyer or even if they stand at the lectern, that's okay if that makes you feel more comfortable. All of those rules, quote unquote, of how to be how to be a great presenter. I don't think they are always in the best interest of the presenter. I'd much prefer to see an imperfect, real presenter than see a perfect but slightly artificial presenter.
And some of those thoughts about being a perfect presenter, I'm sure you do, as I do, are often on LinkedIn, and you could look at that and just have your entire confidence if you're a budding public speaker or someone who hasn't done a lot of public speaking, just destroyed, I think. Not that I'm having a go at LinkedIn because I've got a lot of time for a lot of the content on LinkedIn, but I guess my point is keeping it real and being yourself and knowing who you are. Is that a fair point? I mean, you've got the good bloke quotient going on. You're, highly experienced. Andrew's always like funny, but not too funny, professional, but, I mean, keeping it real. I think your reputation in the industry is quite, I don't know what your brand persona is meant to be, but I've always got the impression with you, it's who you are on stage is who you are off stage.
Yeah, I think so. It is a more theatrical version. Like, when I'm off stage, I will not be hugely animated. I'm the quietest member of my family. I've got a wife, 3 kids. I'm the quiet one at the table. I really am. I'm the quiet one. At the dinner table, I'm quiet. With my friends, I'm not the life of the party. I don't tell jokes at dinner parties, and I'm very comfortable talking to people, but I'm not an extrovert. But when I walk up those 3 to 5 steps to get onto stage, I will literally flick a little switch, and there's a few reasons for it. One is I've got to be energetic because the speakers may not have been. Or even if the speaker was, the audience at a conference, they're sometimes in the room for 7 hours.
It's a long day sitting down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a long day looking at boring PowerPoint presentations, which a lot of conferences do.
Yes.
So I shouldn't be the life of the conference, but if I have to be, I will be.
Yeah.
And so I'll throw in some humor if it's appropriate.
Yep.
I will definitely be energetic. I'll have a little bit of fun. I'll definitely be professional. I wear a suit. I don't wear a tie, but I'll tend to wear a suit or a nice jacket. I'll look professional. I'll sound professional. I'll know what I'm talking about, but I will be informal. And if you're talking about my quote unquote brand, it is, I try and do it that I am professional but informal. By which I mean, I want the audience to be comfortable sitting in that room all day. And I want them to know that I know that there's a little bit of silliness in what we're doing here. Like
It's a bit confected.
It's a little silly. You put people in a room for 7 hours and show them PowerPoint and you expect them to be interested. But you have to do it because some conferences, a lot of conferences give continuing education points, CPD points.
Yeah, you got to turn up.
And so you have to do it. And you have to bring people together from a company or an association. You can't just have them drinking at the bar or hanging out at the barista stand or hanging out in the expo. You've got to deliver some education. And you can deliver education, but you can do it in a way that is a little bit more fun, a little bit more informal if it's going to be all day. And I'm the person who is going to do everything I can, including chatting with the presenters beforehand to make them more relaxed, to make them more human and personal. You know, when I introduce a speaker, I will not read their bio word for word because their bios are boring. Your bio is boring, Jeremy.
Thanks.
My bio is boring. And anyone who's listening to this, if they go onto LinkedIn, their bio is boring and it is dull and it is conservative and it is, yes, it's professional, but it doesn't really make you sound like an interesting person. It shows your credibility because you've got the degree.
Yes.
It shows your experience because you've worked with those 9 organizations, but it doesn't tell the audience who you really are. I want to do both. I want to tick the professional box. I want to tick the experience box. I want the audience to know this person has been asked to speak because they know their shit. But this is also a real person who may be a marathon runner or may like listening to 1980s music or may have had an interesting career when they were younger or may have been born in another country or breed goldfish or I'll find that out and let the audience know so the audience feel that they're listening to a professional who is experienced, but is also an interesting person who they might be able to relate with on other levels as well.
And one of those interesting things about you is that you're a self-confessed Survivor fan. So we're going to deep dive into that. What life or business lessons have you picked up about watching contestants get voted off islands? Why have Jonathan LaPaglia been sacked from Survivor? You know, this is my news.com.au reading. I do read The Age and watch the ABC. Because you got to know what's going on, particularly about the cricket. But no, let's come back to you. What's the go with Survivor? You know, good for you. I love reality, not all reality TV. I mean, I'm sure I watched the first couple of series of Survivor back in the day. Is it Jeff Probst still running around doing the whole? What's his name? Jesus. Yeah, there you go. The tribe has spoken. It probably is in the English.
Tribe.
Isn't it? There you go. Let's chow down on Survivor. Let's get some juicy whatever we're going to eat from the jungle. And I want to know about Survivor and Andrew Klein. Let's go.
Survivor is just about to film its 50th season.
Wow.
Yeah, the American version, which is crazy. The very, very, very first series of Survivor was, I'm going to say 25 years ago, because I think they did 2 seasons a year. And I remember watching it with my wife as she was going into labor for my first child, who is now 26.
Family time together. Let's have a child, darling. And by the way, the tribe is speaking.
That's right. We just started watching this show. Like reality TV wasn't even a thing.
No, it was just a show.
As if my 21st being in 1986 doesn't age me enough. This is
No.
before reality TV. I don't think Big Brother existed and Dancing with the Stars. None of that. I think
No.
Survival was the first or one of the first.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I just really, really liked it. It was a really good show, and it just continued to get better and better. The thing about it that I love, I would not survive a second. I'm not that guy at all. I'm
And
not
that's
at all.
okay, Andrew, but you're embracing being not that guy, and we support you in it.
I've lent into the fact that I would probably not last the night. I like a bed. I couldn't sleep outdoors, and if there was mosquitoes and rain, and if I couldn't eat properly, I'm not
No.
that guy. What I like about it, though, is, and this is a connection to my work, is that show, the people
Yeah.
that survive in that show, one of the things that make them a survivor is the emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
They've got to handle a group of people. They don't have to be the strongest, but it doesn't
No.
hurt. They don't have to be the cleverest, and that doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
They've got to understand people.
Yeah. It's
And
dynamics.
audience dynamic, people
Yeah.
dynamic.
Yeah.
I think that is something that I have learnt that I'm good at. Like I have a really narrow lane that I'm good at, right? There are not many things that I am good at, and there are not many career paths that I could be successful at. Arguably, like, not law, and not the one that I'm qualified for. And
Or handing out brochures in Martin Place, which is fine too.
That's right. I probably wouldn't have lasted long in the leafleting game either. But I'm good at reading a room. I'm good at reading people. I think I've got a pretty good ability to get on with different sorts of people. And that is part of my job.
Yeah.
That is a very, very diverse range of people who go to conferences, run conferences, speak at conferences, and audiences by their very nature in any industry. You can't stereotype and say, that's an audience, or that's a franchise audience, that's a government audience, that's a banking audience. There are certain little flavors and stereotypes perhaps that exist, but generally speaking, an audience is made up of a lot of different people who are going through different emotions, and there are different things that are going on in the room. There are different things that are going on in the world. There are different things that are going on in that company.
Yeah.
And you need the emotional intelligence to read the room and know what's appropriate. What does that audience need? What does it not need? Does it need me to talk? Does it not need me to talk? Does it need a quick intro, a long intro, a big welcome, a not a big welcome? Reading the room. I love watching on Survivor those little subtleties of people usually not reading the cues of the people that they're trying to get on with, and getting voted off because they were behaving badly and couldn't make friends or allies, or even though it's a game and you're sometimes pretending to be friends with people. My job is pretense. Like, it is theatre, but I like to sort of blend that theatre with a real connection with the audience. And I genuinely think the reason that I've been able to do this so long, and the lifeblood of my business is repeat conferences, is because I really like people, and I like getting to know different people and talking to them. And I'm curious, very curious, finding out about people who come from a very different world to me. Different careers, different parts of Australia, different parts of the world, different cultures, different religions, different nationalities, different types of jobs. And so I talk and listen and learn, and that allows me to read the room, and that allows me to deliver what that room needs or doesn't need at that particular time of day.
Does that mean, therefore, that you are, and I assume you are, because you're contextualizing all the questions I'm asking and then extrapolating them brilliantly, does that mean that you're a very good listener too? Have you always been a good, because I would have thought to be able to read a room, you need to shut up and observe, but then know when to speak. So is that part of the inherent, so I hate using the word soft skills because soft skills are always so hard, but is that part of your EQ in terms of, I know you can sense a room? I don't know if I'm answering this question rightly. Is part of what you do so well the fact that you've got that long track record, you've got those flying hours up to walk into a room and go, this is what's going on, and also to be able to listen, and that's overlaid with your extensive research?
Yeah, so the research obviously comes first.
Yeah.
have briefings with the clients. I do a deep dive. I'm on the net. I'm on ChatGPT.
Yeah.
I'm doing my homework.
Yeah.
I'm subscribing, which I do. I subscribe to their industry publications. I read as much as I need. I learn the language. I learn the
Yeah.
the internal language. And when I'm sitting in that conference room, remember, I'm not on stage that much. At the
No.
beginning of the day, I'll be on stage for 15 minutes, beginning of each day.
Yeah.
And in between each session, I'm up, but not for long. But I'm
Yeah.
listening to your point. I have a notepad,
Yep.
pen, and I have my ears very, very carefully listening to everything that the speaker says. There are times that I can switch off if they
Yeah.
start getting into, industry speak. I'm not always 100%. I've got an ear, and I'm writing things down that they're saying all the time,
Yeah.
most of which I probably don't even ever use, but there's a few little nuggets that I then refer to after they've
Yeah.
spoken. A little summary,
Yeah.
something funny that they said, an example that they gave, some mention of popular culture. I'll write it down. Don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I'm really listening for those little funny things that I can then take and use and then throw in and tie to speakers together or tie two messages together, because I'm the key message guy.
Yeah.
I need to reiterate that and make sure the audience is getting the key messages. And so, yeah, I'm acutely listening to the point where I will often, at the end of a conference, if it's appropriate, I'll do some sort of humorous summary of some of the key messages. I won't go through speaker by speaker.
Yep.
Somebody else might do that, and AI now does that for us. I'll try and sum things up with a few little funny references that the audience have probably even forgotten until I remind them. And yes, they will often say, "You really are paying attention." And I sort of am really paying attention for that reason.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of MCs do that.
Do
I think
that.
they go in there and they do a good job, and some of them are very funny and have lovely voices and very talented. I'm not sure whether they are listening. I shouldn't say that because I don't know, but
Oh,
my feeling says I pay more attention than
yeah.
most.
So the way I look at what you do, and I think I'm extrapolating this to, say, a Sarah Ferguson or one of these really good TV interviewers, for example, or radio interviewers, they listen actively while thinking about the next question to the next question 2 questions down, and be able to go, "That's that." It's not linear, is what I'm trying to say. And maybe is that your law degree coming into or your improv background, or the fact that you had to. Yeah,
It's more the improv. I'd be lying to say that the law didn't help. Like, I'm
yeah,
quite an analytical person, so that allows you to, here's an argument. There's two sides to that argument. I
yeah,
want to look at it from both sides. And being not part of the industry
yeah,
often allows you in a weird way to have a different perspective, because language that they think is normal is often not normal. And sometimes having an external person like me being able to hold a mirror to the normal stuff that they talk about and show how it's actually a little bit funny or absurd, some of the language they use, that certainly helps. All of that is probably in the law, and I'm pretty good with words, and I can play with words and play on words, and
yeah,
pretty good with that. The improv, though, I didn't realize it at the time because I studied improv as well as doing improv. I used to do theatre sports where I'd actually be on stage, and, the audience would toss you a topic and you'd have to make them laugh and do a scene around it. There's a lot of improvising in the conference industry because I can be as
mhm,
prepared as I like, but I don't know what the speaker's going to say, and I don't know the
no,
mishaps that are going to happen, and I don't know what funny little thing happened at morning tea, but I'll see it because I'll be there, and I
yeah,
don't know what I walk around the expo and I'll pick up little funny anecdotes based on things that they've seen, the audience have seen.
yeah. You're almost walking in their shoes, but then be able
Yeah,
to reflect back. Is that a
I'm
fair?
an audience member.
Yeah,
But I'm just an audience member who is gonna throw back at them something that they had not even realized that they had thought, which I guess is what a comedian does.
yeah,
But I'll think on my feet, and I'll be very self-deprecating because I make mistakes all the time, and the audience will notice that I make a mistake, and I will lean into that mistake And, I'm the person in the room who knows the least about the subject matter. Like I do. If I go to a medical conference
Does
for
that matter?
1,000 ophthalmologists, they know I don't know anything about ophthalmology. If I go to engineering association, I'm not an engineer. I don't
Yep.
know anything about engineering. So they know that. They know that I know that. So I'll have a little bit of fun with that.
Yep.
I'll know what's going on with the conference. So impro is really, really good. You pick up, no matter how prepared I am, and I'll walk in with 100 pages of notes, but I will scribble and change and think on my feet, and I'm editing all the time. I wish I could put a microphone into my head, but I'd be cancelled in a second. I'm going, that would be funny. Can't say that. That would be funny. Can't say that. If I'm ever concerned that something might be inappropriate, I've got a pretty good radar for that.
Yeah.
Just leave it behind. I'm not there to make people laugh. If I was a comedian, I'd have to make them laugh. I'm the MC.
Yeah.
If I make them laugh, that's an unexpected bonus for them.
Tick. But it's not your KPI. What's your toughest gig ever been? I mean, you've had. I'm sure you've. You talk about all these different industries, even one close to home. Have you ever, not without naming it, well, potentially, but have you ever walked off stage and gone, oh my Lord, that didn't?
It's interesting. I'm not going to mention any names, but I will say that law conferences are the hardest for me.
Right, because it's your profession? Right.
They don't like to laugh that much. I'm sure all my legal friends would say that's bullshit. We can laugh at ourselves.
Right.
A group of lawyers in a room tend to be difficult. There is an exception, and it is a conference that I do where they are incredible and they laugh and they don't take themselves seriously. That is a legal conference for in-house lawyers, meaning it's not a law firm.
Yep.
It's people who work as the lawyer for a company.
Yep.
So they've actually, like me, many of them escaped big law firm land.
Yes.
Gone to work in the corporate world in a smaller team. They work for big companies, but they're the in-house lawyers.
Yeah.
They're delight. But lawyers are hard. Generally speaking, lawyers are hard. The groups that I find the most difficult, and I don't tend to do these much anymore, but I did once upon a time, I would do a lot of award nights, which is a very, very popular thing for MCs. And there are some MCs that are really good at it. The reason I don't like them is because, and it sounds like I'm joking, but I'm not, people just want to get drunk in an awards night. They just want to chat with each other and get drunk. They're not really that interested in listening to who the Western Australian Sales Manager of the Year is. And I'm not good with working with an audience that are not attentive, as in I'm not a shusher. I don't like shushing people. I don't like asking them to shut up. At a conference, people are there to listen and they're there to learn. And so they tend to either pay attention or quietly jump on their phones and not pay attention.
And that's okay.
Which is fine. But at a dinner, people understandably are not interested in what the idiot is doing on stage. They want to drink and eat and chat with each other at their table. So I don't do that many of that type of corporate gig anymore because I'm not good at it. It's not only that I don't like it, I'd much prefer someone who is very talented at that type of gig. And I've got mates who are, who like it and who are good at it, and they should do it. I've got I mentioned my lane, my conference lane. Even within the conference lane, I've got lanes that I go, I'm right for that one, not great for that one. I'll say no to that conference because I don't think I'm the best person for it, but I'm the best person for this one and this one and this one, that one and that one and that one. And I now, after 30 years, I know what that is. And it's like a builder who goes, I'm really good working with this material or not that material, or I'm really good at outdoor or not indoor. A doctor who specializes in X has got the degree and could do Y. I'm about to go tomorrow to an ENT because my throat is playing up. You might be able to hear. My regular ENT is more of a nose person, whereas I have to find there's a throat guy. Well, I have my lane.
You can specialize where you need to because you've built up that body of work.
And I don't want to, for the sake of getting a job and getting paid, I don't want to do a job that, you use the term brand, that will do any harm to my brand. I want to be the right person, and I now know whether I am or not. And clients love it if they inquire and you say, look, thanks for the inquiry. I am available. I'm not the best person. Bring him.
co-head person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And does that go to that point of, like you said before, about being authentic, but also just knowing, what you can say no to these days?
To be honest, it's
Yeah,
good business.
yeah,
Like, why would you take on a job that
yeah,
you could be fine at? Like, my client would be happy. They would go, "Yeah, you did a great job." They would be
yeah.
happy, but they would be happier with somebody else. And I don't say this in an arrogant way, but
No, no.
I don't want to do jobs that I don't like anymore. I'm very blessed after 30 years
Yeah,
that is, I know which ones I like, and I know which industries I like, and I know what sort of conference I'm going to be right for. So
yeah.
I'm pretty picky. I mean, I still need the money. Like, I'm not in any way.
Andrew Klein, was it Andrew at lunch.com.au? There you go.
That's the aim. That's the aim.
Uh, 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 your persona strikes me as being someone, and I haven't thought of it until just now, listening to you in a different age. You would have been like a brilliant foil to a Kennedy or a Newton doing the audience warm up kind of stuff. Like there's some professional people now that do that. But did you ever kind of do that kind of TV stuff?
No, I never went into TV. To this day, I still have people who say, "Are you on radio? You should be on radio, or you should be
Yeah,
on TV, or you'd be
yeah,
great at." Um, it's an as a lifestyle choice,
yeah,
the the conference industry is fantastic,
yeah.
but for me, and I did learn this while I was working as a lawyer, I'm not able to work as part of a team all the time. As in, when I go to a conference, I
Yeah,
become part of the conference team,
yeah.
but I would not be good in a hierarchy.
Ah, okay. Yep.
Can't have a boss, and I can't have somebody determining what I should do. This is where the quiet arrogance comes in.
No.
I designed my career out of it's me.
Yep.
I worked for a big company. I worked for a small company. Then I had a partner. Then my partner and I had a small company. That was the study skills
Mhm.
work we do, small
Yep.
company. Then we decided we didn't really like the managing of other people. We wanted to just do it. Then my partner and I worked together. Then my partner and I incredibly amicably split up.
Yep.
And for the last 15 years, I've been on my own and it's been the best. As in,
Great.
that's what I want. I have
Good.
people that I subcontract to,
Great.
people who help me with different parts of my business, with the financial side and a little bit with the marketing side and putting show reels together. And I work with some speakers bureaus who do some of the marketing and booking. But essentially, I will decide for me. I don't have to worry about anybody else.
Yep.
Uh, that's the
Fair
sort of
call.
thing. If you work in TV, suddenly you've got
Yeah.
produce people that could buy you and hire you. I don't
Yeah. No, show's the gig.
fame. You get more fame. I don't want the fame.
No.
I'm not famous. I'm known in my little tiny industry, which is fine.
Yep.
And the other thing I guess about TV is that the one thing within the TV world that I think I would have loved, it's too late now, I
Yeah.
think I would have loved, and I love watching these shows, is the talk show.
You and Tonight Live or like a Vizard type.
My
Yeah.
my idol,
Yeah.
the person that I idolize the most
Yeah.
is Stephen Colbert.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay. And
That's
I
good.
idolize him because he's got a talk show. He's comic, he's funny,
Yeah.
he's very professional. Like, you put him in a suit, he could be a lawyer. He's got really good emotional intelligence. He is a very, very good conversationalist. Like, he's prepared, but he's listening. And that's a great gig. But
Great.
that doesn't exist in Australia. And
No.
you really only get that again if you're a comedian or an actor, or which he was, and Jimmy Fallon was, and Jimmy
Yeah.
Kimmel was. And so I've found my niche in the corporate conference niche area
Yep.
that is not without its downsides. Like, the travel was difficult when the kids were younger, and still,
Mm.
I don't love the travel, but if you work in the conference industry, I'm not in Sydney for most of my conferences.
No.
I'm Gold Coast, Adelaide, Melbourne, all over the place. I travel all around Australia. I travel internationally, but I'm also at home a lot in between that. So I do spend a lot of time right here at
Yeah.
home, preparing, writing, marketing, all of that stuff. So I've just created the career with the things that I like doing and the things that I don't like doing. And so one of the things that I wouldn't like doing and will not do is I don't want to be answerable to anybody.
No, fair enough. Except you and Pebbles and your wife. There's Pebbles. Pebbles. Pebbles has been awesome. How do you wind down after having been on? I know, like it's a different thing, but we do our annual conference and I'm, absolutely wide awake for 48 hours after. And I'm only doing it for a day and then the awards night at night and then, going home. But how do you do it? Is there a way you
It was hard. I've got ways of doing it now. It was difficult. The way that I do it now is that I love being on stage. I love
Yep.
being at the theatres. I love the chatting with people at the expo.
Yep.
I love all of that.
Yeah.
There is nothing that I love as much as taking the lift up to my hotel room night
Right.
and that sound of silence.
Yep.
Because it's a noisy job. You're with
Yeah.
people and you're smiling all the time and you're
Yeah.
interacting.
You're on. You're on. Yeah.
Oh, no, I sometimes find
You're a
myself
Disney character almost walking out, dare I say it. Not that you're a character, but you know what I mean? Like you're on. As soon as you get out of that lift in the morning, you are on. Is that yeah.
Yeah, that is 100% correct, and you remain on until literally you walk back to your hotel room at 11 o'clock at night after the dinner.
Wow.
Very tired at that point, but I can make that transition very easily now. The
Okay.
turning myself on, that's easy. Go down on the lift, you're on.
Yep.
Listening, working, following, like the cues are everywhere, following everything that's going on. I need to be on top of everything. But then I walk back in the room and I close the door and I will do a number of things. The main thing I will probably do is lie down on my bed and
Yeah.
watch some stupid show on Netflix for a while.
Good. Yep. Great.
And I'll have a soft drink from the minibar because I don't drink alcohol while I'm at a gig. So, I might have a wine at the gala dinner possibly, but I will have a soft drink at the minibar, have a packet of chips, listen to something on Netflix, usually some comedy special or some, dumb comedy.
Yep. Great.
And
Have a
very
chuckle.
comfortably drift off to sleep very, very quickly. And I'll wake up the next day nice and early and I'll go for a walk along the beach if I'm at the Gold Coast. And I'll sort of, decompress and I'll have a shower, get into my suit, go downstairs, and I'm on. When I come home from the conference, that's easy. And again, sounds like I'm joking.
No.
I'm not. I learned very quickly when my kids were little that you're walking from the conference where you were the man.
Yeah, you're it.
You're it. You're the guy on stage. You're the funny guy. You're Andrew.
Yeah.
And you're walking through the front door, and no one gives a shit. Like your dad.
Yeah.
Right? And
They just want to say good day.
my kids are older.
Yeah.
The only person now who runs to the door, I think you know where I'm heading with this.
It's Pebbles.
Is Pebbles, my little dog behind me. She's I
love you so much. And it's been 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Keeps you grounded, I guess, doesn't it?
It does. And that's great. It keeps you totally grounded. My wife is a psychologist. She has her own business. It's a lot more difficult than mine. And it is very high stress.
Yeah.
And it's very intense. And she's dealing with real stuff.
Yeah.
Bad day for her is somebody who was in a very, very bad way. A bad day for me is, no, I didn't really laugh that much.
Yeah. Well, the power goes off in Hamilton Island. They serve the beers a little bit less cold.
I walk in from my job. I get on the plane, put on my headphones. I'll read a book. I'll listen to a podcast. I'll arrive home and I'm back. Like that job is finished.
Gone.
It's closed. I'll write up some notes from things that happened at that job because I'll need them for next year. Close that file, put it away, on to the next job.
So how do you debrief professionally then? That's my last question before we circle back to the 21st. So how do you take on that feedback post events? Do you look at the recordings of yourself after, or do you kind of intuitively know that didn't go down well, or could have done that, or?
I think intuitively you do have I think now I do. I don't think I did at the beginning. At the beginning, you'd often be surprised. I'd think, wow, that went really well. And it turned out that it didn't. Or the opposite. Sometimes you think it was really successful, but you didn't feel that it was that successful, but the client was delighted. So I've got a pretty good radar for it now. I will always chat with the clients. Like my client becomes my best friend while I'm at that conference, and many of them are. very, very
Great.
close to them. So I'm constantly chatting with them. We're constantly debriefing.
Yep.
I will get video footage often, often, I will get video footage because a lot of the larger conferences, particularly ones that are held in big ballrooms or big convention centers or large associations, they will video them, particularly as a result of COVID. Now, a lot of people buy they'll buy the presentations.
Yeah.
So I will watch those back. I'm very critical of myself. And the feedback, the best sign for me that I did a good job is that I get invited back.
Yeah.
And
you're only as good as your last worst gig, aren't you, really? Sorry, that makes sense.
Only as good or bad as your
last worst gig.
The reality for me is that I don't have clients that are long-term contractually.
No.
They are only contracted. In fact, you didn't ask me this question. In fact, we weren't even going to talk about this.
No,
but I will tell you a little left of center thing from my law career. I don't have contracts with most of my clients.
Oh.
Deliberately, I don't have a written contract.
Right.
Because if I learnt anything from the law, it is this, that if somebody sends me an email and says, "Hey, Andrew, are you available for our conference? It's going to be at the Sheraton Gold Coast on the 3rd and 4th of October. Are you available?" And I say yes. And they say, "Send me a proposal." And I send them a proposal and I say, "It's going to cost this. I'm going to need you to do this and this.
Yeah.
Organize the transport, blah, blah, blah. I'll send you an invoice afterwards." They then email back and say, "Great, lock it in." I'll send them an email back going, "Great, I've locked it in. We'll chat and we'll do a briefing down the track." That's a contract. That's a contract in writing, and it's a contract.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have to put a contract together. And I know that they don't want to have to put a contract together. And I know
and it's in writing anyway.
Contract. It's in writing. And that ties in with I'm easy to deal with, I'm professional, and I'm informal. It's a handshake, in old style language, it's a handshake agreement. And most of these clients I've been working with for 10 years, they're not going to screw me.
No.
They're not going to do the wrong thing. I've had one bad debt in 25 years because the companies, to be honest, that I'm dealing with, it's a big bank. It's a big insurance company. It's a big pharmaceutical company. It's not the local builder who might be potentially trying to screw his subcontractors.
No.
I don't have that problem. And I just don't want to have I'm trying to, as I said, I try to shed myself of all that. Do some jobs through speakers bureaus. They will have a contract, a 2-pager.
Yeah.
Occasionally, if a client says we want a contract or we need a contract, or for our due diligence or our risk management person or our procurement person needs a contract, I've got a 1-pager that says all the stuff that I just said to you.
Yeah. Blah, blah, blah. And you've got your liability insurance and all that kind of whatever.
It's all the things that you probably shouldn't do, but I do think the clients appreciate that I'm very, very low maintenance to deal with. And I'm not worried that they're going to take advantage of it. COVID threw up some problems, but that was not because of contracts or not contracts. Like, we ignored most of our contracts, as in the world ignored most of its contracts.
Let's go back to the, was it November? Hey, when was you turned 21 in November and your birthday was in December of 1986. So the party was in December, I beg your pardon. So let's get 21U out, and he's drinking his solo with no vodka in it, which I think is fantastic as the virtual non-drinker myself. I thought, and just very quickly, working in politics, you just don't drink on the job. Like, it was always hammered into us in virtual parliament, and obviously in associations, I've only had one person come up to me in the last 15 years go, "We never see you drinking at work, like at work. And I'm like, "It's because I'm at work." Do you know what I mean? Like, did you, not that I'm talking about me, but that's the only time in 20-something years, 25 years I've been running associations for, have you ever had anyone, no, I will babysit one beer or a wine for the entire night. And one person ever has come up to me and goes, "You're not drinking." And I'm like, because I'm at work and you'll have to.
Great description. I will be babysitting that beer or that one wine for the whole night. It's simply because they're at a conference, so that for them, even though it's a work conference, is a sort of holiday. For me, it would be like if I'm sitting down with my accountant and he's having a glass of wine, I'd be thinking, "Mate, work. How are you thinking properly? That's not professional." So Yeah, that I'm not a big drinker anyway, but that's just never difficult. So 1986,
Yep.
21-year-old.
Yep. What would 21-year-old Andrew say to Andrew of 2025?
I'd like to think that 21-year-old Andrew would be quite surprised, would be pleasantly surprised that 59-year-old Andrew
Yeah.
found a career.
Yep.
Like, didn't become a lawyer, because then that was a crossroads. I was still on the road to becoming
Yep.
a lawyer. So I'd like to think that 21-year-olds would look at me and say, "Oh, good on you. You did manage
Right.
to somehow marry your impro, your theatre, your speech making, your personality, and made a good living out of it in the corporate world and fed a family and, paid a mortgage and things." I'd
Good on
like
you.
to
Yep.
the 21-year-old, the if I could say anything to my
Yeah. Well, that's my last question. What would you say to your 20-year-old self? So your segue is brilliant.
there'd be a couple of things. The first one I would say is you made a big mistake in the invite list.
Go on.
There is a girl that you are friendly with called Danny
Yeah.
that you haven't invited to your 21st, but you've invited a few of her best friends,
Right.
going to eventually marry you and be pissed off and her to your 21st. Invite her to your 21st because she's gonna be the person that you're gonna marry, even though you weren't great friends with her. You were good friends with some of her friends who did. That's one thing I would say to her.
Right. Has she ever forgiven you, Danny?
No, Danny still jokes about it all the time.
Oh, I love it. That's an awesome
Throws up the
story.
names of the 2 or 3 people that she was friends with then.
Oh, she remembers.
And I just say, "Darling, I didn't marry any of them. I married you."
Married you. Oh, that
So,
is awesome. Right, that's one thing you'd say to your 20-year-old self. That's worth the price of admission for that whole podcast, actually. Go on. That's brilliant.
um,
Oh.
I would say to my 21-year-old self,
Yep,
which I think a lot of people would say to their younger self, don't sweat the small stuff. Like, don't
yeah,
worry about a lot of the shit that you are going to worry about,
yep,
particularly with your career. You will work it out. I said to you before when I left the law, I sort of had this gut feeling that I would succeed. But Jeremy, I'm being honest, like it took a long time. And
yep,
there were times where, I would be a fraud to say I didn't doubt myself. And
yep,
my wife was very encouraging, but there were times where, there were lean pickings. And there were
yep,
times when the momentum was building and then it stopped and it was building. And there were times where I'd go, why the hell did I not get that job? Maybe it wasn't the right thing. Maybe
yeah.
this isn't going to sustain a family. I would like to tell myself that stick at it, keep working hard. You're good at what you do. You'll have to sort of invent the career because I sort of, not me alone,
No, no, no.
but sort of, the way I reverse engineer my career is that I sort of invented my career, but I don't know whether that happened. There was sort of stumbles
Mm,
things along the way. I would tell myself, you'll work it out, that there is a career to be had here. Just stick at it and, look at the things that you do. You can monetize and commercialize those things. And to the point that I made at the beginning, you can be a creative in a suit in the corporate world.
yeah,
There are options.
that's a great note to end on. And I'm sure you and Danny have had that conversation about who you should have invited to your 21st on multiple times. And that is a brilliant. I love those stories. That's brilliant. Andrew, thank you so much. I knew I was looking forward to having a chat to you. I was delighted when you said yes, you'd come on the show. And I've really enjoyed that chat. There's a lot there. There's a lot to take out. And I love the authentic you. Sorry, I love the lessons about you saying be authentic. And I think that relates to anything, any form of leadership, any form of comms, any form of getting up on stage and owning it.
I
And
appreciate that.
and
That's very kind, very warm-hearted what you've said. It
no,
does allow things like this to allow you to do. I'm turning 60 at the end of this year.
yep,
Anybody could work that out from 1986, he was 21.
there you go.
It's interesting reflecting, like,
Yeah,
I'm old, but I'm still young in my head, but
yeah,
I do like looking at myself from the perspective of my kids are around that age.
yep,
So it's just interesting to see them and their careers developing, and I have done a lot of reflecting about what I was doing or thinking or worrying about when I was that age. So this conversation with you has been, a lovely, lovely opportunity to do a little bit of that reflection.
And we thank you for it. And kudos to Pebbles at your end and Poppy at my end for not barking. There you go. We've done the entire interview. If Mum comes home now and Poppy, that's okay. You can bark. Andrew, that was great. Thank you so much for joining us on Dear 21-Year-Old Me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that immensely with Andrew. What a great guy. What an absolute classic. I do these. We can see each other on the screen when we do these interviews, and I walked away last night thinking, "Oh, gee, it'd actually be a lot of fun to do this on YouTube and put it up." But we'll see. We'll see in the future. Andrew and I were chuckling away, and to her credit, as I said in the end of the interview, Pebbles at Andrew's end and Poppy at our end, we're doing really well in not barking. So kudos to both the Oodles. One in Sydney and one in Melbourne. But most importantly, what I got from Andrew's conversation, and I really appreciated his time, he's a busy guy, were three things. One, the sense of humour Andrew has, the fact he doesn't take himself too seriously, which I think comes out in a lot of these interviews, as I've done them over the last wee while, and I'm looking forward to bringing you a lot more in the future. The second one was his and Danny, his wife's Danny, Andrew and Danny's commitment together as a team, really, for Andrew to leave that legal role and go who knows where. And so credit to her, credit to him. I loved the story about Andrew and Danny and the 21st right at the end. That was an absolute classic. And then reflecting on Andrew's perspectives of leadership as he sees it on the stage. So that active listening, the constant taking it all in, observing, reading a room. We talked about those soft skills not being necessarily those soft skills not necessarily being easy. I think soft skills is a bad term. It's those hard, intuitive, understanding people, listen. And that old saying, shut up and then say it and then shut up and then shut up again. Really listening. And then Andrew being able to reflect on his leadership style and what makes good leaders and what makes good public speakers, because anyone in a leadership role, it doesn't really matter what you are, what role, what industry, eventually you're going to need to do public speaking. And I know we had to do a lot of it at school and I enjoyed it, which has probably led me to something like this. So I really enjoyed Andrew's conversation. He's someone that you could sit down and have a non-alcoholic beer with, or a quiet beer, as we talked about even off air later on, about just even some of those expectations that we have on ourselves as doing what he does and then what I do in my role as well, and have done for a while. So thank you so much to Andrew for his considerable time. Thanks, Pebbles, for getting through the interview. And as always, thanks to Cursed Kids and the aforementioned Pooch for their support behind the scenes here. And most importantly, wherever you are around the world, thank you for taking your time to listen to this. I hope you really did enjoy that chat with Andrew. You can see him holding court quietly at a barbecue on a Saturday afternoon. Fascinating guy. And it would be a really, really tough gig. You have to always be on it. Like the fact he goes up to the hotel room and just decompresses it. It's a tough gig being in front of people. And I think professional MCs, people like Andrew who do it and do it well and have done it well over a lot of years, are at the top of their game. So congratulations to you, Andrew. And on that note, that is it for this episode of Dear 20-Year-Old Me. Thank you so much for joining us. A shout out to Graham Weller, who is the cousin of one of our initial guests, Doug Weller. Doug went from being a saddler to a chef to the foreign correspondent and also one of the hosts of what is now News Breakfast. So, Graham, thank you very much for reaching out via Doug, and I hope you enjoy this next series. Wherever you are, like Graham and Doug around the world, thanks for your time. Go well, stay well, and look forward to having you join us for the next episode of Dear 21-Year-Old Me. Bye for now.
Thanks for joining us today. For more episodes and links, visit dear21yearoldme.com. And if you enjoyed the show, don't forget to rate and review us wherever you get your podcasts.